6:07 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And welcome on in, July 27th. Hope you are doing well. Want to get right to the Newsmaker Hotline. Congressman Mark Green joining us. I know that our time is limited, so I want to get right to it. One, thank you very much for joining us here on this Thursday. So we know that it's a very busy news day, Congressman. What's your initial reaction to Hunter Biden's plea deal falling apart? We know that, we've got Kevin McCarthy, even before all of this was going on, talking about an impeachment inquiry. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, my first, thanks for having me on, Dan. My first reaction is Hunter Biden is a criminal, and they're negotiating to basically give this guy let him plead guilty to 2 misdemeanors so they can throw out whatever felonies might come in the future. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. I'm so glad the deal went away. It was rigged from the beginning, and the judge just, she had some hard questions, and you look at some of the FARA stuff and all this. I mean, there's a lot here. Obviously, this is a crime syndicate. And so Jamie Comer's digging into it. The question of whether or not they can tie that to President Biden, was Hunter just making this stuff up when he was texting that I'm sitting next to my dad? They've got to tie Biden to that. But certainly the United States of America deserves the answers. And that means if the DOJ is going to bail on its duties, we're not. So Jamie Comer's digging into that in the Oversight Committee and doing a fantastic job.
I know that there's been some conversation regarding, and Republicans seem to be divided on this, so I'm curious as to what your answer is.
Sure.
But there's discussions regarding having a special counsel look into all of this Hunter Biden stuff. And some Republicans say that should happen. Other Republicans are more inclined to say, no, let James Comer and Jim Jordan do their jobs and continue the investigation because, and I would say, let's face it, they're doing a phenomenal job in uncovering, the suspicious activity reports and so forth. So it just seems to me like they're doing a great job. So do we need a special counsel?
Well, I wouldn't be against a special counsel. I think the American people want to know that the DOJ is working, and a special counsel would be an opportunity for the DOJ to step up, because the special counsel would still work for the Attorney General. That's kind of how that works, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'm for that, but I'm also for Jamie not letting go. I mean, Jamie's got to continue to dig in because, quite frankly, you can't trust the DOJ right now, and but for their own credibility, I'd love to see a special counsel come in there and do some investigating too.
One of the questions that a lot of folks have, and the left, they keep saying there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. Which, I mean, I know that they know that there is evidence. I mean, they can't be that dumb, right? So they just keep saying there's no evidence because they hope that the American people will believe them. But behind the scenes, from your vantage point in the House of Representatives, Congressman Mark Green, you tell me, do the Democrats understand that there is evidence, and a lot of it from the IRS whistleblowers to the FBI agent corroborating with what the IRS agent said to all of the other things that we've seen, again, regarding the suspicious activity reports, the multiple family members of the Biden family where they're getting all of the, I mean, I could go on, but do they understand that there is evidence?
So, it's very interesting. I have acquaintances over there, but they're not that kind of acquaintance where, there are a couple of guys that have said, yeah, this looks bad, but they won't take it any further than that. And so they are robotic over there in their the way they lock arms, and Republicans, we tend to do the circular ambush every now and then, and I mean, I get it. We're independent thinkers. And I like that about our party. They are not. I mean, they may have an independent thought, but they're never going to share it because they're going to vote lockstep with their team. And there are times when that's a strength, and there are a lot of times when it's a weakness. And right now, it's it'd be like prying Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a great analogy or a funny analogy, but we're not getting that kind of information from them. I'm not.
No, and I refuse to believe that they don't understand that there is evidence, and I'll get into some of this later on in the program. I want to switch gears though. I want to play you some audio. This is Ted Cruz and Alejandro Mayorkas, and of course there was testimony going on the other side. And I want to play this for folks because it is just stunning.
Is there a crisis at our southern border?
Senator, there is a very significant...
That's a yes or no question.
There's a very significant...
Is there a crisis?
There is a very significant challenge that we are facing.
Yes or no,
is
there
border.
A crisis?
I believe I've addressed that question.
So you're refusing to answer?
Senator, there is a very significant challenge, and
will you answer if there's a crisis?
Therefore, we are dedicating the resources...
Okay, so you're refusing to answer.
I mean, it was just... What is wrong with the word crisis, Congressman?
Well, because it admits failure. I think they would never ever admit failure. I mean, that's the whole, and I get that from a political standpoint, but it's so dishonest, it's ridiculous. Because every American, 61% of Americans, I cited this in the committee hearing last week, think that the cartels control the southern border. 61% of Americans agree that our southern border is not controlled by the United States of America. And if the Democrats want to survive, they've got to own this and try to get it fixed. And there are very few things, like 8 to 10 maybe, that 61% of Americans align on right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you listen to it, and that was all of I think 22 seconds of that conversation. That went on for 11 minutes. And so Mayorkas he sounds, I think you used the term earlier, he sounds robotic, and I don't get mad at this stuff anymore, Congressman. I laugh at it.
Look, Mayorkas is reptilian. That guy is, he's as slimy as any guy in D.C. He is, every time he comes in front of the committee, it's like, we gear up, and it's just. I don't know. I've never seen anyone who denies the truth like Alejandro Mayorkas.
Well, he works for another guy like that, Joe Biden. 6:15 on Nashville's Morning News.
He doesn't know the truth. His word's salad 3 times a week. The press won't report on that. Mitchell the Senate minority leader has a 20-second petite mal, probably a petite mal seizure, and it's all over the news.
Congressman Mark Green joining us, also, of course, a doctor. So you were talking about, you opened the door to the conversation, so I'll follow up. Mitch McConnell. So I haven't seen a lot of coverage of what people think may have happened, but in your experience, you think that it was a what?
It's called a petite mal seizure. I mean, the way his eyes locked, I watched it, and he didn't even blink. And that reflex is so deep in the brainstem. I think he had a small petite mal seizure. That's a special type of seizure where you just kind of lock your gaze forward and you're kind of out of it for 30 seconds or so. It's actually a brain seizure, and it's treatable with medication. It's not like dementia where, you can't string a sentence together, which is Joe Biden's issue. And that's a cognitive problem, right? I mean, that's really bad.
Right.
Okay. So, and I don't know all of Mitch McConnell's history, so I can't make the final diagnosis here, but as an ER physician watching what happened, I'm like, he's having a petite mal seizure. Now it could be something else,
Yeah.
But that's what it looked like. That's a very treatable thing.
Is that Congressman? May I ask? Does that come with age, or can that happen to somebody who's 30?
No. In fact, it's typically something that comes on pretty young.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I know that he had the concussion 5 months ago or so, and they say now.
Yeah, that a head injury can, long-term effects of a concussion could be certain types of seizures.
Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I love your perspective on that. Let me ask you, because I know the time is running short, and I find this interesting. You filed legislation to demand monthly overdose and suicide data from the CDC. Now, can I just ask, how is that not already available? How is that not being released? And why is it not released? And why is it you have to file legislation to actually get this done?
Well, morbidity and mortality data from the CDC has always been on an annual basis, and we haven't really stressed about it because we haven't had to make decisions about, things like heart disease or deaths from, seizures or, transient ischemia or strokes or any the causes of morbidity and mortality. So
right.
Those reports also cover suicides. They also cover, gun related deaths. They cover obviously overdoses and intentional overdoses and accidental overdoses. I'm asking them to provide that, and it took them 6 months basically to report 22's data. So, we got to make real-time decisions on what's happening at the southern border. The overdose information educates us, especially the accidental overdoses, because most of these fentanyl deaths happen because a kid thinks they're taking an Adderall at a party and it's laced with fentanyl and they die. So we need real-time data. And I said, I sent them a letter requesting that they report 60 days later. They have the information by that time and they can report it. So far, we've heard nothing from the CDC. We'll send a second letter, and then we're going to pass a bill that demands it. So,
well, let me ask you this: do you think it'll pass the House? I probably will. And then, do you think it'll pass the Senate?
It'll require me doing some work over there, but yeah, I think that's something that the Democrats can't say no to.
Well,
I mean,
I don't know.
It'd be a great TV ad. They don't even want to know in a timely fashion, how the drug cartels are killing Americans.
Well, that's exactly right. All I got to do is play the audio from Alejandro Mayorkas. Okay, very quickly, one last thing, and I appreciate your conversation and your patience. Let's talk about this story, because I'm dying to get your opinion on this. You've got the story of the family, came out here, I think, in the last couple of days, where one of the fallen 13, one of those military members that died in Afghanistan during Biden's botched withdrawal, they were told that they had to pay $60,000 to get their loved one's body back to the States. Apparently, this is related to an amendment to the NDAA that says that the families have to foot the bill for this. Am I understanding this correctly? And what can be done to change this?
No. So what it is, and so what it is, they flew them from Afghanistan to their home of record. The soldier wanted to be buried in Arlington. So the government flew them home from the battlefield and paid for that expense.
Okay.
So they had not been paying for them to go, like if let's say you're a 75-year-old Korean War veteran, you pass away, and you would have to cover your expense. This is before the NDAA amendment. You would have to cover your expense for your body to be moved to Arlington, to be buried in Arlington, but the cost of the burial would be covered by the government. So what the bill or the amendment on the NDAA did in the House, it said shall cover the expense. Well, the NDAA went to the Senate, and some senator, and I don't think we've done the homework yet to figure out who it is, changed shall to may in the bill. So the NDAA last year passed with may cover the expense from home of record to Arlington. So the DOD is interpreted like, well, we don't have to. So they said no to this family who wanted to fly from home of record to Arlington for the burial. And the cost was like $60,000. Fortunately, a not-for-profit picked it up, and the family didn't have to write the check. But the federal government should do this. This is a hero who died in Afghanistan, and if we're going to put them in Arlington, let's cover the cost to move them there.
What kind? It's incredible, Congressman. What kind of bureaucrat would just say no to that? I mean, the bad publicity alone.
Oh my God! Well, one, it's a stupid idea, especially in the face of what this administration is doing at the southern border, flying illegal immigrants to the home of their choice inside the country, which just infuriates me. Yeah. But then you add in that they say no to this, and I mean, it's like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And but that's who Joe Biden and his team of people are. America, that's who the Democrats are. And that's why, we can't. We have to beat them in 2024.
Absolutely, and we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, Congressman Mark Green, joining us here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.